As expected, PCA and Muddy River starting to materialize here as the number 1 and number 2 seeds. They have nailed down their places in the conference, getting some wins here in the last week. Also in girls basketball, Laurel taking over the number 1 spot with a win over PCA. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. We do not have any guests here today, but we're looking forward to one next week. But we're going to dive into some MSAHA basketball action. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. It begins right now. Thank you for joining us. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. I am your host, Trellis Williams, and I want to remind you first, before we get started, to be sure to hit the subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show, January 8th, 2025. So this past week, we had some games getting back started with basketball action here for the new year. And we started off with PCA and Laurel. We were talking about this last week, the MSAHA Game of the Week, which was the 18U girls battle between PCA and Laurel. The first time those two teams played, PCA won by 1 point, and they were hosting the ball game in Lacombe. They won 34-33. So they had given PCA the number 1 spot in the conference. Now they're trying to protect it. Taking on Laurel here on the road. PCA had lost to Meridian, and so they did get their first conference loss. So PCA going into this game was 7-1 in conference. Laurel was 5-1. These two teams took each other on. Laurel handles PCA 43-23. So a good win for Laurel. Laurel now in the number 1 spot in the conference. They split the games with PCA, and now they are number 1, 6-1 conference record. PCA falls to 7-2. So we'll keep a lookout on that. But Laurel winning by 20 points. I thought that was notable. The first time, of course, PCA won by 1. And, Laurel's been doing well as of late. But being able to win by 20, that's a very dominant performance for the Laurel Lady Nighthawks. And they're looking to come through the stretch of this season. This is the time of year where you're wanting to be playing well, and it looks like Laurel's playing pretty well right now. So looking at the boys' game, that was another notable matchup, PCA and Laurel. In Laurel, PCA, number 2 spot in the conference. Their only 2 conference losses are to the Muddy River Counselors, the number 1 team in the league. PCA handles Laurel 62-42 the first time those two teams played. PCA won by 13. Laurel led at a lot of parts of the ball game. PCA took over the game 145-32. This time, the Paladins take care of business, winning by 20 points on the road. Thing about PCA is that they've lost twice to the Counselors, the first time by 9, the second time by 11. So the thing is, the Counselors have been running the table this year, overall and in conference, but PCA right on their tail. PCA could beat the Counselors if they're able to play at a high level. The Counselors are a tough team to beat. Obviously, they're 18-0 on the season, and we're going to talk about them right now. Macomb taking on the Muddy River Counselors. So starting off with some girls action. The Counselors had lost a few conference games in a row, dug themselves a hole, had fallen to the 5 seed in the conference here. This is 18U girls. So this was the bottom 2 seeds in the league, Macomb and Muddy River. The Counselors girls take care of business, winning by 41 points at home, 57-16. So the Counselors take care of business there in girls basketball. In boys, Macomb, Muddy River, the Counselors explode. Their second 100-point game of the season. The Counselors win 101-37. Now, we posted the video on our YouTube, the TSJW Network YouTube channel. The second quarter, historic second quarter for the Counselors. They score 40 points, outscore the Gators 40-8 in the second quarter. They win the ball game 101 to 37. And now Macomb is the 3 seed here in this conference. Counselor's very impressive win. So Caleb Sanders finishing 31 points. So Michael Williams with a monster triple-double, 15 points, 17 rebounds, and 13 assists in that win for the Counselors. And so then, they move in that one to 17-0 overall with a 13-0 conference record. Then on the Saturday, January 4th, the Jackson Victors take on the PCA Paladins. The Paladins played Friday night against Laurel on the road. PCA back at it again, taking on the Jackson Victors. The Paladins seem to have the Victors' number this year. They win by 37 points. Now, the Victors are the 4 seed in the conference right now, and they've been very competitive this year. They even lost to the Counselors by 21 points. Not too bad of a loss there. But PCA has beaten the Victors by over 30 points twice. They do it again, 68-31 on their home floor. They handle business against the Jackson Victors. The PCA Paladins looking pretty good right now. And so then on January 7th, which was last night, Tuesday night, skipped over one. Also Friday night, the Hattiesburg Forerunners took on the Tupelo Titans on the road. Forerunners score 72 points. So a good scoring output for the Hattiesburg Forerunners. They win by 11, 72-61 over the Tupelo Titans. So that's where the Forerunners are getting their second conference win of the season, moving to a 2-8 conference record. Last night, the Meridian Flyers, the Muddy River Counselors, matched up there at Hines B. Hall. Counselors on a little bit of a homestand here to begin 2025. And so Meridian taking on Muddy River in girls basketball, kind of highly anticipated matchup here. Meridian sitting at the 3 seed, Counselors at the 5 seed heading into the ball game. These are two teams that have kind of always played close. The first time the two teams played, Meridian won by 13 points. But there was a buzzer beater in the tournament last year between these two teams. Meridian won the first 2 games last year. They won one by 5. Meridian and Muddy River pretty close in girls basketball over the last couple of years, but Meridian mostly beats Muddy River. This time the Counselors are able to put the Meridian Flyers offense in a stranglehold, winning 34-19. So now the Counselors girls are 4-6 in conference with a 7-7 overall record. Counselors looking pretty good right now, winning 2 in a row. This one was notable, beating Meridian, a team they lost to the first time. So it looks like the Counselors will be the 4 seed in the league, unless Hattiesburg is able to make some big upsets here coming up. And so then in the boys matchup, the Muddy River Counselors breaking 100 again, winning 103-61, a 42-point win over the Meridian Flyers. Now, the Flyers are able to put in 61 points, and a big notable performance for the Meridian Flyers was Cooper Franklin for their basketball team. I don't remember how many he finished with. I believe he may have finished with 26 points, but his third quarter was something else. 16 points in the third quarter. So Meridian was scoring the basketball, but I'll tell you who was really scoring the basketball. It was Caleb Sanders for the Muddy River Counselors, 44 points, a career high, and then Michael Williams with a back-to-back triple-double. 2 straight games with a triple-double, and so this time it was 17, 10, and 10. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and so Counselors are rolling right now, 18-0 record. Wow, what a start to the season for the Muddy River Counselors. Obviously, games are held right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel, Counselors TV, and so you can check those out whenever those games happen. But Counselors looking very good. Those 2 top guys playing really well. Overall, Counselors doing very well on the basketball floor right now. Back-to-back 100-point games as well. And so that'll bring us to our halfway point throughout the show. I want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. Also, like this video and be sure to share it with anybody who might be interested in homeschool basketball commentary, which is what we have right here on this channel. We got a lot of things coming up. So obviously the 16U tournament will be January 31st and February 1st, will be brought to you right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. We're bringing you Championship Saturday for that, as well as the following week, which will be the 18U and 14U tournaments. And with that, we are looking for sponsors, looking for advertisers. And if you have a business or you're involved with a business that might be interested in getting some advertising on Championship Saturday right here on the TSJW Network, please be sure to shoot me an email. That is TSJW Network at gmail.com, TSJW Network at gmail.com, and for advertising inquiries. And we are definitely interested in doing that, and we will have those productions coming up in just a few weeks. We're very excited about that. So some exciting things coming up here in the conference. And so definitely something I also wanted to talk about. So obviously, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the tournament formats are going to change this year from the double elimination that has always been for the MSAHA. So there's going to be a switch this year to a different format. We do plan on, in one of these coming shows, breaking down the new tournament format and how that will work and how the different seedings will fall in. And I think we'll do that probably in a couple weeks as we come up to these tournaments, but we are definitely looking forward to that. It will be different than normal of what we've seen here in this league. So wanting to stop and look at the standings a little bit. So if we look at MSAHA 18U girls standings, so now Laurel taking over at the number 1 spot in the league, 6-1 conference record. That goes along with their 14-4 overall record. PCA at 7-2. So PCA's done a good job. I don't believe PCA has any more conference games, I don't believe they play Macomb a second time. They do not. And so they will stay at 7-2, which is a very good record. Laurel is not solid the number 1 seed, as they still have games against Meridian, a game against Hattiesburg, and a game against Macomb. And so after those 3, we will see where Laurel ends up falling in this conference. Now, Laurel obviously going to have the head-to-head with PCA, as they beat them by more points than PCA beat them. And so as long as Laurel is able to keep their losses at 2 or less, they will be the number 1 team in the conference come tournament time. Meridian at the 3 seed now with their 3rd loss. 1 loss to Laurel, 1 loss to PCA, 1 loss to Muddy River. They've played PCA twice already. They got a game against Laurel coming up. We will talk about that. That is actually tomorrow night, so we will discuss that in just a little bit. Muddy River now at 4-6 with 2 straight conference wins. Hattiesburg 3-5. Hattiesburg could leapfrog Muddy River there, as Hattiesburg has 2 more conference games, and they are against Meridian and Laurel. Those will be tough games to win, and all they have to do is win one of them. If they win one, they will leapfrog Muddy River, as they beat the Counselors by more than the Counselors beat them. And so they have the head-to-head over the Counselors. So we will see what happens there in 18U girls. But then looking at some 18U boys here, the Counselors obviously running the show right now with a 13-0 conference record. Also we'll talk about this in just a second. Let's go ahead and talk about this right now. So in the conference, so Tupelo and the Royal Hurricanes not competing in the tournament. Royal Hurricanes didn't play against everybody over the course of the regular season. And so the Hurricanes games don't count towards the conference records this year, just because, it's their first year. Played about 4 or 5 conference games. Tupelo played a lot of them. Tupelo is not competing in the tournaments, but those games do count towards the conference standings. So I do want to give that as a note as you look at these standings right now. But Muddy River up at the 13-0 conference record. Obviously, this does not count any ball games with the Royal Hurricanes, which therefore, here's the Muddy River Counselors with the 13-0 conference record. This affected Meridian, as Meridian played the Royal Hurricanes, won the ball game. So that takes away one of their wins. And but the Muddy River Counselors 13-0 in conference, number 1. PCA 9-2 in conference at number 2. Those 2 are solid. Counselors have sealed number 1. PCA has sealed number 2. Macomb right above Jackson, but Macomb beat Jackson twice. So the Gators have the head-to-head over the Jackson Victors. Laurel at 4-6, 1 game behind Jackson. And then you got Tupelo at 2-7. Obviously, Tupelo is not going to be in the midst there. Hattiesburg 2-8 after their win over Tupelo. Meridian rounding it out with a 2-10 conference record there at that last seed. And so that is where we stand here in conference action for 18U boys. And so, it's very hotly contested right there in the middle. of the conference. So we're going to talk about some games that we have coming up next week. And so tomorrow night, starting off in Laurel, Mississippi, the Laurel Nighthawks will take on the Meridian Flyers. So in girls basketball, this will be one to look at. So Meridian had a very tough outing against the Muddy River Counselors, really laid an egg, lost 34-19, lost by 15 points on the road. Now you take on Laurel, you take on the number one team in the conference. Last time the two teams played, Laurel won, but by 9 points, 47-38. Now Laurel hosts, and Laurel is a hotter team right now than Meridian is. Meridian took a tough loss there. Laurel coming off that win over PCA. So Meridian Laurel should be an interesting ball game. Meridian has a little bit more size. Laurel has a lot of quickness, a lot of speed, and some good shooting. So Laurel's a very good basketball team, 14-4 on the season. And so then in boys action, we got Meridian and Laurel. This will be another very interesting ball game. Meridian's got a lot of talent on their team. They've got guys who can get buckets. They're able to score 61 points on the Muddy River Counselors. Obviously, they lost by a good amount, but this Flyers team can score the basketball. Laurel is a big team. And they also have some guys that can play as well. Now, last time the two teams played, it was a win for Laurel, but it was by 9, 70-61. A very good game. I would expect a good game tomorrow night as well. But we'll see what happens there in Laurel. Meridian and Laurel tomorrow night. Then on Friday, it's going to be Hattiesburg and Meridian. Meridian's going to be right back at it, this time on their home floor, as they host the Hattiesburg Forerunners. So in girls basketball, it should be very interesting. This could be a good opportunity for Meridian and Hattiesburg, because Hattiesburg's trying to get over the Counselors there for the 4 spot in the conference. This could be an opportunity for them to try to get there. Hattiesburg does have a team that can play. They did well against the Counselors just a few weeks ago, right before Christmas break. And their 3 wins are 2 wins over Macomb and 1 win over the Counselors. So now they'll head on the road to take on the Meridian Flyers. Flyers going to try to get back in the win column there. They're going to try to get back into the win column tomorrow against Laurel. But then if not, they definitely want to get that one at home against Hattiesburg. I would give Meridian the edge there, but they've got a team that can play. And so I wouldn't sleep on Hattiesburg there. So in boys action, you got Hattiesburg and Meridian again. This is going to be a great game. These two teams are very evenly matched. The first time the two teams played, 55-50 win for Meridian over Hattiesburg. That game was in Hattiesburg. This time it'll be in Meridian, or in Hickory rather. This should be a great game. I have no idea who's going to win this game. It just depends on who's hitting shots that night. Hattiesburg obviously was hitting shots there against Tupelo, putting up 72 points in that game. So we'll see what Hattiesburg you get and see what Meridian you get. And that's there in Hickory on Friday night, Hattiesburg Meridian. Then also Friday night, 18U boys action, the Jackson Victors, Muddy River Counselors, the crosstown rivalry, back at it again. Counselors won last matchup, obviously by 21. So the Victors did hang around for a little while there. This time it'll be at B Hall. The Counselors will be hosting. So we'll wrap up the regular season for the Muddy River Counselors. They're going to look to wrap it up in style here, and they've been playing very well as of late. They are back-to-back 100-point games for the Muddy River Counselors. And so that will be there at B Hall. Then January 13th, which will be a Monday night. That will be on Monday. Back in Laurel again. This time it's Hattiesburg and Laurel. And so in girls, obviously that's a tough game for the Hattiesburg Forerunners to play. Laurel's girls are very good this year, as they've been the past 5 years or whatever. This will be a tough one for Hattiesburg, and especially on the road. But see what happens there. I would say Laurel's the favorite, but that should be an interesting matchup. In boys, Hattiesburg and Laurel should be very good. So Hattiesburg has won 2 conference games, one against Tupelo, obviously on Friday night, but then the other one was against Laurel. They defeated the Laurel Nighthawks, which was a surprise. They were 1-8 in conference, and their one win was over Laurel. Kind of surprising to have as your one win, but Hattiesburg, lost some games real close. That's a team to watch out for in the tournament. Tournament should be very interesting. I'm very excited about seeing what comes of that. But Hattiesburg and Laurel should be very good on the boys' side there in Laurel. So that'll be interesting to see. And we were kind of talking about this a little bit with the Jackson and the Muddy River game. I mean, these guys, they're in the same like graduating class, and they go to the same kind, the same kind of stuff. Hattiesburg Laurel in a very similar situation. They know each other in that way, just like Jackson and Muddy River have. So then you got Tuesday back in Laurel again. Laurel's got a lot of action coming up this week, a lot of conference action. Jackson and Laurel. Now, the first time those two teams played, the Victors won. That was in Byram. The Victors were hosting it. They beat the Laurel Nighthawks. Laurel's going to try to get this win here. And if you look at these standings right here, Jackson and Laurel are right there close. Jackson at the 4 spot, Laurel at the 5 spot. 1 game separates them. Obviously, Jackson will have already played Muddy River by this point. Laurel will have already played Hattiesburg and Meridian. So we have to see how those games go. But these two teams are very, very close in conference matchup, and this game should be good. Jackson and Laurel, down in Laurel. We got some good games coming up this week, and I'm excited about just seeing what the results of them will be. But, folks, we appreciate you joining us right here on the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. I am Trellis Williams. We are excited about the weeks ahead. We are in January. We are coming down the stretch of the season. We look forward to a good show next week. Hopefully we can have some good guests there next week. But thank you all for joining us. Please hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Like and share. I'm Trellis Williams. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. And until next week, we out.